Hi everyone, this is Ileana and I have another card share for you today. I'm going to be using the MISTI with a little bit of masking. I'm going to start with my stamp set from Close to My Heart. It's called A Budding Friendship, and I will first try to figure out how I want to layer my stamps. So I'm starting with the large flower, and I'm going to be just doing a front panel to my card, and I'm going to trim it down later, but for now I'm just going to set it onto the MISTI and just lay out where my stamps need to be. And I liked the hand lettered Winter Wishes from Simon Says Stamp because of the sketchiness of the sentiment. It goes well with the sketchiness feel of the flowers that are in the Close to My Heart set. And I did play with the stamp set a little bit ahead of time, and I did discover that no matter how hard I try, that the two stamps are meant to be a little off. So it's supposed to be a little bit of a sketchy kind of feel to it, and so it's okay that it's that way. A little part of me just wanted it to match so badly, but it just wasn't going to happen. It's just not the way that the stamp is made. So I'm trying to line up the stamp with the pattern, and I'm just going to tilt the MISTI up a little bit, and I'm just going to get it as close to the image as I can. And like I said before, they're not meant to be matchy-matchy, so it's going to look just a little bit off kilter. And I'm going to be using the VersaFine Black Onyx ink. And this ink, it's kind of a pigment, and so you could use it for embossing. And so I want to do some masking, so I don't want to use the VersaFine ink to do my mask. I just use a black ink so that I can cut it out. If I were to use the VersaFine, it would smudge and I would get ink all over my fingers. And so I just went back and just used a plain black ink. And I'm only trimming the part of the stamp where I don't need to trim out the whole thing, just where the leaves are going to poke out. And so I'm checking to see how far I need to fussy cut around the petals. And once I get that done, I go back and I decide that I want to go ahead and double ink the flower, and I want to go ahead and use clear embossing powder. I don't want to put the mask on top of the VersaFine because I think it'll smudge, and so I went ahead and just put my embossing powder on and melted the powder with my heat gun. And you want to make sure that your heat gun is hot so that it doesn't warp the paper. I did have warping on this card, and so it was a little hard to work with the bubbles in the paper. And I did get a little smudge there, and because the VersaFine takes a while for it to dry, I was able to take a clean baby wipe and just wipe the smudge off the cardstock. And I did go back and just set my mask over the area. And you only have to worry about those few little leaves, so it's not that big of a deal. And I could not find my magnets. I think I gave them away to a friend of mine. And so I just had these other magnets that I had found when I was testing products out. I don't really care for this size magnet because it doesn't hold the paper down. Even with 3 magnets on the MISTI, it still doesn't hold it down. And I see that I have some of that VersaFine on the lid, and I go ahead and wipe it off because if I don't wipe it off, it's going to end up on my fingers. And not to mention the VersaFine, it can stain your lid, and so I don't want to mess with inky fingers or a dirty lid, so I go ahead and clean it with the plastic polish. And I'm just placing the leaf right over the area. The mask is on. And I'm going to be using Limeade Ice from Papertrey ink. And the pink I used earlier was Raspberry Fizz. And that is my favorite pink color. As you can tell from the color of Misty, that the hot pink is my favorite color. Go ahead and double stamp it just so that I could get the really vibrant color. And now I'm trying to line up the sketchy outline pattern of the leaf. And I'm going to use the VersaFine again. And this is how I do the other 3 leaves. And so I'm going to cut that part out of the video, but it's basically the same thing. Use the mask and stamp. And I do use the embossing powder after each step simply because I don't want to get ink smudges all over the white cardstock. And so I'm a little overly cautious here instead of trying to get all of the images and then doing that at the end. I'm just not trusting myself with that. I don't really like the placement of the single leaf, but it is what it is, and I just went ahead and kept it. I think it's still fine. Now I'm using the thanks sentiment, and it doesn't need to be exactly straight because it is kind of a wonky handwritten font there, and so it's okay if it's not exactly straight, and so I don't really spend too much time fussing with it. I do want the black letters to touch the flower so it kind of feels a little grounded. I don't really care for floating sentiments, and sometimes it can't be helped, but in this case I just want a little bit of the black to touch. And I didn't want to press too hard on the lid because sometimes the VersaFine, you get like these little fuzzies on your stamp, and it kind of makes it look like it's a little bleed. And so I didn't want to press too hard because I didn't want those fuzzies to get all over the place. And after I do that, I go ahead and heat emboss it again. And I'm just using some superfine, what is it, Ranger Superfine Detail. It's just clear. And I'm just going to go ahead and melt that with my heat gun. And this card ended up being kind of really warpy, so I end up using a lot of tape at the end, but the warpiness of the card actually makes it a little difficult to put the skinny sentiment that goes underneath, the little sentence that goes after the thanks. It's a little bit hard with the warpiness of the card. I'm not sure if that's a word, but it is now. So I go ahead and put the little sentence down underneath the thanks, and it says, "For everything you do." And I'm just checking to see if it's straight, and it's just so darn skinny. It's kind of a little difficult to see if I get it straight or not because it's a new stamp, and the card is warped, and so I end up futzing with it quite a bit. Finally, I just do a practice to make sure that it's straight because, like I said, it's kind of really skinny. And I adjust it and then try it again, and now I'm happy with it. So now I'm going to go ahead and stamp the rest of that, and it's really small and the letters are thin, and so I don't really want to press too hard or else it'll get a little distorted. So now I'm going to heat emboss again, and like I said, I was a little too chicken to do it all at the end. I was really worried about smudging, and so now I'm doing the last step, which I think that's the last time I heat emboss. And now I'm cleaning my MISTI again, and I'm just making sure that I get all of that black ink off of the lid. And oh, and I forgot to do the center of the flower, and I'm just going to use the Papertrey ink Harvest Gold. And The inside of the flower, just because it's kind of sketchy, there was a little bit of pink. I don't really like it there, but there's not much that I can do. And so it's just the way that the stamp is. So there is a little bit of a pink fuzz inside of the yellow flower center. And I did want to, oh, I lied. I do more heat embossing. I do the center of the flower just to give it a little bit of glossiness. And once all that's done, I go ahead and trim it down just a little bit. And I did get a little bit of a smudge, and I just used that clean baby wipe. And there is a little bit more smudge on the bottom that I get to later. I'm just trimming down my card front to 4 inches just because I want a black border at the top and bottom of my card. And I just have a black card base from Papertrey ink. It's the True Black. And I'm just putting the card base into the base of the MISTI. I'm going to score it a little bit more. I'm going to put a lot of ATG adhesive on the back of my card front. And then I'm going to use the side of the MISTI to make sure that my card front is straight. And that kind of helps me get even placement. And the card base is a little bit wider. And I think I could have left it like that, but I end up trimming it down. And there's that little bit of smudge down there. And just because the VersaFine stays wet a little bit longer, you can do that. And it does work. And so I'm just trimming it down. And now I'm going to put some enamel dots on it. And normally I fuss over where to put things, the little embellishments at the end, and then I just decided that I'm not going to think about it too much, and I'm just going to just commit to it as quickly as I can. And so I end up putting it closer to the other end of the thanks. And I didn't press down that larger one, and when I went to go photograph my picture, it had fallen somewhere between here and where I take my pictures. So I ended up having to go back and look at the video so that I could place that little enamel dot in the same spot. And that's all I have for you. Be sure you head over to My Sweet Petunia, and you can click on the link to get to the blog, and be sure you subscribe so that you can get any updates. And thanks for stopping by, and thanks for watching. Have a great day.